Hey, hello, and welcome to the Feel Strong Fitness Podcast. My name is Justin McClintock, and this week we have nutrition coach and personal trainer Jenna Bernard on. Jenna, welcome to the Feel Strong Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, I'm excited for this. We had talked about pre-recording. We were sort of talking about the idea of meal prep versus food prep and how simple it can be versus how complicated many people make it. And honestly, how complicated a lot of folks in our own industry kind of present it for people, maybe trying to sell fancy cookbooks and things like that. What is your kind of approach to food prep and meal prep?
I think I'd like to find out where someone's at first. Like, do you actually like to cook? Starting there. Because if someone doesn't even like to cook, whether they have time or not or whatever, if it's not something you enjoy, then that's not a route we should go down, you know? I personally don't really love cooking, but I like having my meals ready and I like having, food ready for, for dinners and stuff like that. So I do more preparing. I'll, make sure I have my proteins ready to go, some so we can choose from chicken or turkey or fish, and then a couple of veggies and some carb choices to decide from, whether it's going to be rice or a potato or whatever vegetable and a salad. That way, everything is ready to go, but you're not nailed down to one specific boring meal that you're eating over and over again, which I think turns a lot of people away.
Yeah, that can happen. And I do a combination of what you're talking about. I'll often do like prepare a couple of proteins and a couple of vegetable/carb sources, and then you can kind of mix and match and add your own seasoning. I will also often make like a slow cooker recipe, but if that's the only thing, no matter how good it is, no matter like the most banging chili or amazing buffalo chicken, whatever, the fifth meal in a row, I start kind of wishing I didn't have to eat it and wishing I hadn't made 4.5 pounds of it.
Well, the good thing to do with that is I utilize my freezer. I know some people are kind of averse to, they're like, oh, is it still going to be good frozen? Most things can stand up to the freezer pretty well. There's, a few vegetables and a few things that I wouldn't recommend freezing, but chili's free is awesome.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Yeah. So, I mean, unless it's something that has like zucchini in it or something like that, I think that will get mushy. So there's very few things like that you have to worry about.
I guess it would be things like that with an extremely high water content, right? Because they don't reconstitute particularly well.
Yeah, exactly. So anytime like I make like a big batch sort of thing like that, I will just put them right into individual portions and into the freezer. My favorite thing to do with that is just doing a bunch of chicken right in the slow cooker with nothing but water. And people think that's crazy, right? But as you were saying before, if it's plain, you can season it however you want. So that chicken can later turn into like a chipotle bowl, or it can turn into more like a chicken teriyaki with vegetables, All I do is I cook it in the slow cooker, and then when it's done, I take it out and shred it all and package it individually, and it all goes right in the freezer.
So you're not talking about making yourself just eat chicken boiled in water.
No.
You're talking about like cooking the base, and then you have 5, 6, 7 other ways you can go with, I mean, a couple of minutes, like a pan and a sauce, and you have a whole new meal in front of you.
Exactly. Or even the microwave or the air fryer, reheating foods in the air fryer, because most people have air fryers now, but they don't think about just doing the reheating in the air fryer. And that can make a really big difference in texture.
Especially for some of those higher water content things or things that don't reconstitute super well. I am absolutely guilty of cooking something in the microwave for like 6 minutes because I do not have the time or patience to preheat the stove, and then throwing it in the air fryer for 3 minutes to get like a little crisp, a little more body to it, and it's great.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's not to say that I don't actually put full meals together too, because when we all have things that we really enjoy and we know we're not going to get sick of. So one of those things I make it's sort of a little chipotle bowl, but I'll just do peppers and onions that are frozen, already frozen, the fire roasted peppers and onions from Trader Joe's,
Hmm.
and I'll just portion those out in all my containers. And then I personally really love the fat-free refried beans, but you could just do black beans or pinto beans or
Hmm.
whatever, you like. You could do rice. I'm currently in a prep, so I'm not doing that at the moment, but that's another option. And then adding in either ground beef, ground turkey, or the shredded chicken. You can go any way you want with that. And then salsa, guacamole. If I don't want to depend on having a ripe avocado and not having that,
Right.
go bad, I'll just
Catching it in that magical 45 minutes.
Oh my gosh. So I'll put those little guacamole packets and a packet of salsa right in the other section of the container. All of those get stacked and go in the freezer. So that doesn't mean I have to eat that every single day, but I know that I have at least that option ready to go if I don't have something else that I want.
And you have kind of a prepped little bento bowl that you can just break open, put it together, and it also hasn't turned to mush because it's been sitting all mixed in with itself.
Exactly, and the guacamole and the salsa, like the guacamole sort of acts as an extra little ice pack. By
Mhm.
the time you get to your lunch, because I'm working outside the home, so by the time I get to go eat that, the guacamole is already defrosted. And yeah. Oh, I should have mentioned I didn't put the salsa in the freezer. That was in the fridge. You just have to remember to
Fair
grab
enough.
it.
I want to double back on this, but you used a term that people might not know. You just told everyone you're on a prep. I know what you mean, but for people who
Okay.
don't understand, what is that?
Sure. So I'm in prep for a bodybuilding competition. So that means it's an extreme diet. It's a diet that nobody should be on unless they are wanting to step on a stage.
Now
But
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, but I think you can draw a lot of parallels because sometimes if people do have some sort of a notion of what that means, they might automatically think, oh, she's just eating, tilapia and asparagus and nothing else. It's good to kind of show people that even though I'm doing something extreme, I'm not taking extreme measures, and neither should you.
Now, there's a balance there, and I think it's an interesting thing to dig into. There's it's I think pretty typical for people in our industry to at least flirt with competition or enter some competitions kind of to see what it's like. I think the N of one, use yourself, be your own scientist, is a really powerful place to hang out and a great place to learn from when things go well, when things go badly, all of those experiences along the way. It can be hard to be doing things like that. I have found it can be hard to be doing things like that and then tell clients, people who are looking up to you, people who are following you, you should not be doing what I'm doing. Because the natural response is you're doing it, and there's something about what you're getting that I also feel like I want, or I think you're smart and I trust you. So why shouldn't I also do this? Why shouldn't people eat exactly what you're eating?
Well, first of all, I have to say that everything you just said, I struggled with so hard for a very long time. I toyed with the idea of hiding it,
Mm-hmm.
not putting it
I was going
out
to
there.
ask, like, if you thought about not telling people.
Yeah, definitely. For that specific reason, especially because my whole platform is about balance and not going to extremes. So it took a lot of internal wrestling,
Okay.
to kind of come to a decision. And I decided that it's part of my journey, and people have, told me that they've learned a lot from my journey, and that I should continue to share it wherever it takes me, as long as I feel like I do put out a lot of disclaimers and kind of explain what you can draw from and maybe what you shouldn't draw from. But the reason why somebody shouldn't copy what I'm eating or what anyone else is eating is because diets should be individual. You shouldn't just, because you could go on ChatGPT right now and say, give me a diet plan, and it's going to give you one.
Yeah.
But that's not going to be the best solution for you.
Very unlikely to be optimized in
Right.
any way for you. There's also, I was talking with our mutual friend Aram Gregorian a few days ago about this, about the idea that there's sort of different levers we can pull in life depending on what priorities are. And sometimes we can go really hard on fitness and or really hard on nutrition. Sometimes we need to go really hard on work. Sometimes we have to go really hard on family and relationships. Sometimes we just have to focus on stress relief. All of these things are happening. You can't be at 10 all the time for any of them. You probably shouldn't be at 0 for any of them either. So it's figuring out where you can go. I forget I used to know when your contest was. Are we like 6-7 weeks out? Am I in the neighborhood?
Like August 2nd. Mm-hmm.
What is your plan for August 3rd?
That's an excellent question. My plan for August 3rd is just to go right back to my normal Sunday, if you will. I'm going to have lunch at a restaurant, and it's going to be pretty much what I normally eat. There's going to be nothing crazy about it. And you can't, if you're already at this point thinking about what you're going to indulge in when it's over, and the same goes for any regular person on a diet, then we already kind of have a problem. It already shows that we've been too restrictive or that we've strayed too far from our norm. And that's why so many people kind of, rebound or go off the deep end when their diet or their prep is over. So, there's definitely ways we can prevent that. And personally, I know everybody has their own way of approaching dieting and prepping, but I think that you should always enjoy your food, and that there's always, especially that's the beauty in the flexibility of a macro-based approach, is that you can fit things in if you really want that.
Yeah, and ideally people are, and I think you're on board with this as well, we would like people to be eating as many calories as possible and enjoying it as much as possible and still moving toward their goals in a sustainable, healthy way. And I think what you just said is really important. If you're doing something, some program, a diet, a workout, something to do with stress relief and recovery, and you're finding yourself resenting it on a really significant basis and feeling incredibly restricted, trying to find ways to kind of cheat or work around it or do little things that don't matter, it's useful to take a couple of steps back and see if these trade-offs are worth it, because probably not. If you've gotten to that point, it is very easy to rebound the other way and go from working out 2.5 hours 5 times a week to not working out for the next 3 months and feeling terrible about it. So some of the trade-offs you may be making may not be sustainable and may not be worth it in even sort of the medium term.
Right. And I should have touched on that too when you asked me what's going to happen after. Definitely my cardio will be tapering down slowly back to like a normal baseline of the American Heart Association's recommendation of like 150 minutes per week, So things like that, my activity will definitely go down. My steps will definitely go down, things like that. Back to people, going too far and being too extreme. But sometimes even if they're, a good diet that is not extreme, that is just a moderate deficit, you can still have an attitude about it that's poor, and that makes it even harder. So there's that balance, because even if, you're not doing something extreme, you can still make it extremely hard on yourself by having the wrong mindset of like looking at your food like, I have to eat this, when it could be, I'm thankful for this food that's going to give me the energy I need. It's little shifts of like, oh, I have to go do this cardio. No, you get to do the cardio. It's you have to have those shifts in place, or you're going to make your diet more miserable than it needs to be. Because let's face it, nobody wants to be on a diet. It's not fun.
Being hungry is uncomfortable.
Right.
It's not fun. And if you're in a calorie deficit, which is required for losing weight, and a lot of people's body composition goals involve losing some exogenous fat, at some point you will have to be in a calorie deficit, and that means you will be hungry. And that mindset shift you described is really important on all of these elements. Sometimes I found it often easiest to go one to one, or to use the analogy of working out, because people will do a hard workout and at the end of it they will be leveled. Their legs are weak, they're shaking, they're covered in sweat. In any other situation, they would be concerned. They might be upset, but they feel great about it. So, well, why? Like, you're weaker than you started, you're tired, you can't feel your legs, you're sore now, you're probably going to be sore tomorrow, you're hungry, you're incapable of doing anything else. This sounds like a bad situation. Why do you feel so good about it? And they express, well, I know I worked hard, I'm getting stronger, this is good for me, I feel good about doing these things for myself. Great. I need you to take that and move it to our recovery, and move it to our meal prep, and move it to our, this is like, yeah, this is a little uncomfortable. This isn't the most fun thing I'm doing, but I know I'm doing something good for myself. This is what getting stronger actually feels like. This is what becoming a more complete version of myself actually feels like. But that is a hard journey for, and guilty, like, for everybody, including myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And I think sometimes, like, we as fitness professionals sometimes, forget where we started from and what we liked and didn't like. Because it's mind-boggling to me now that I'm a personal trainer and I hated working out. I failed gym class in high school. I did not do sports. I wanted nothing to do with physical activity. Even when I got older, I kind of felt like, I don't want to sweat. I have to go do
Right.
my hair, and then I have to redo my makeup, and I have to take a second shower. And who has time for that? And I had so many things that I set up against it,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So that's why I feel like I'm empathetic towards clients that say that they hate working out, because I was there too. But what people have to understand is that you could change your mind. You could change your mind so drastically you become a personal trainer.
Yeah. And I don't need you to like it.
Right.
If we both agree this is the right thing for you to do, and you say it's a really high priority and you're willing to invest your time, energy, money, opportunity, all of that into doing it, great. That's what's required to make the big change. And I am happy to guide you along the way and be as helpful as possible. I don't need you to have a great time. It's okay if it's not a great time. I have a client who I worked with in person several times a week for years, and she's still a remote client now. I don't think she's ever enjoyed a workout, but one of the most consistent clients I've ever had, because she's very clear that it supports her everything else she wants to do. Being a mom chasing her toddler around, and she's in the medical field and has to do lots of like moving heavy things. Like, she's very clear, this aligns completely with my goals and I don't like it, and I'm going to do it at least 3 times a week. And I'm totally cool with that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And obviously, I'm very much, and I let people know that I'm a big proponent of strength training. I think it's
Mhm.
very important and everybody needs to do it. However, when someone is going from completely sedentary to, okay, I know I need to do something, my favorite thing to say is try out a few things and pick something that you hate the least.
Yep.
Whatever you can tolerate, and for some people that might be a group class. And you know what? If that's getting them moving, then that's great. We got to start somewhere.
Yeah, there is no one size fits all. I will also, on my intake form, I think I have a bunch of questions, but there's 2. Is there anything you definitely want in your program? Is there something, because it's perfectly normal for people to come and they have something in their mind, and because they saw something on Instagram or they talked to somebody else or whatever, like, oh, I'm working with Justin, I'm gonna get to work on handstands, or I'm gonna do some heavy squats, or something. Tell me what that is. And the next question is there something you definitely don't want to see show up in your program? Because if there's a movement or a modality that you despise, 99% of the time, we don't need it. There's 10 other ways to the finish line. And what I don't want to do is give someone who's just made a big decision to really invest in themselves, invest a bunch of time, work on changing their life, and day one is like the one movement that they wish they never had to do for the rest of their life.
No, I love that. I love those 2 questions. It's gold, because that's going to, make someone feel good about what they're doing and know that they don't have to do that one big scary thing that they think they're going to have to do. And, and it's the same thing on the food side, because a lot of times I always require people to talk to me about what a normal day of eating is. Obviously it's a personal thing, and you have either some shame or some guilt or some thoughts about what you are eating versus what you should be eating. And people are afraid to share that at first. But what I try to get them to understand is that I'm not asking you so that I can go, wow, look how unhealthy that is. Here's what you should be doing all day long. I'm asking you that because I want you to eat what you enjoy. And I'm not going to take those things away. I want to add what your body needs. So maybe that, you really love your bagel and iced coffee for breakfast in the morning. How can we add a protein to that? How can we add a plant to that, versus taking the bagel away and saying you have to eat egg whites?
I
You
love that idea. That's such a smart way to assess people where they are, partly because I think people are so used to a diet, a program being, you have to stop. Everything you've been doing is bad and wrong and broken and you're a mess. Here's the right way. And what you're talking about is, wait. We're going to start exactly where you are. And I'd like to sprinkle more. We might take some things away, or you might have to find a trade-off. I would really like to give you 30 grams more protein between lunch and dinner. In order to do that, we need to lose some fat from breakfast. And here's 3 ways we could do that potentially. And now we're back to like slightly moving levers around and making relatively subtle adjustments for people, not a giant, dramatic, painful thing, which, as we've spoken about, is unlikely to work in the long term anyway. Like once you get past kind of 21 or 30 days, I found whatever the hardcore extreme thing is tends to crumble under the weight of real life.
Absolutely. And when people realize that it can be that easy, and sometimes, especially for someone that's really just starting out, like they don't have to know all those things that we just said. Like that's kind of on our end to deal with. But when we're adding in that protein, adding in that fiber, what happens is they just naturally don't have as much room or appetite for the other stuff that we kind of wanted them to cut back on anyway. It just happens naturally.
Yeah.
So
how much do you talk to people about that stuff? Because we've gotten a little in the weeds, sort of fitness, nutrition professionally. How would you talk to someone about making these changes without drowning them in jargon or trying to show off?
I just say, we have wants and we have needs, and we need to find a balance between those two things. It's okay to have what we want, but let's add in what we need as well. Or sometimes, we really need something, and I'm thinking about food wise. Like I know I need some protein here. I know I need to eat a vegetable. What do I want that's going to make that more palatable for me? So it's just a back and forth of balancing wants and needs. That's how I break it down and keep it simple.
Is there a way, given that, because often it's easy for wants to outweigh needs, especially in impulsive times, whatever those might be, whether it's brought on by stress or emotions or poor eating schedules or etc. How do you direct people to kind of keep the needs on the plate as well as the wants when things are less easy?
So, well, that's where preparation comes in, right? It's having our meals that we need prepped. Also, having things in the house at the ready for when we want something, like, okay, I want a sweet treat after dinner. Well, that doesn't mean that it has to be, a sleeve of Oreos. There's plenty of, and I'm the dessert queen, so I will always give people a million ideas of what you could do. But, that could be a yasso bar. Then you're getting your protein and it's delicious, and you can't even tell it's frozen yogurt. It tastes like ice cream to me.
I don't know a yasso bar.
Yeah, they're good. So you can have a sweet treat after dinner if that's what you want. There's a million different options we have to make that work for you, Right now, the trending thing is the fluffy yogurt bowls. If you've
Oh yeah, I've
seen those all
seen
over
everyone making
Instagram.
these.
Yeah, but I mean, so you could make an Oreo yogurt bowl. You could make a peanut butter cup protein bowl. There's we have so many options now,
Yeah.
So I guess I guess that's it. It's like figuring out where's the sticking point. What is it for you? And for me, it was dessert. For someone else, it might be, getting super hungry in the after, like at the 3 o'clock, in the afternoon. And it's like, oh, they still have a couple hours left of work. It's going to be hours until dinner. I always get hungry right at this moment. Okay. So how can we take a look at the meal that whatever meal was previous to that, your lunch or whatever. And do we have room? Maybe we do have room for a snack, but maybe it's a matter of beefing up your meals so that they're fueling you to the next meal. That's an individual case by case basis.
And a lot of what you're talking about is planning for that flexibility. So it doesn't become an emergency. So there isn't a point where the only slash easiest option is one full box of Cheez-Its. But it's actually easier to grab the Yasso bar or these other things. And that requires planning ahead of time, but also giving yourself that room. If the plan is, I'm going to be perfect this week. I'm going to nail my macros every single day. My meal timing is going to be amazing. I'm going to crush it. And then your boss yells at you on Thursday and you take that out on someone you care about. And then you sleep really poorly Thursday night and Friday's really rough. And suddenly you haven't eaten for 7.5 hours and you're stressed out. And there is a box of Cheez-Its on the counter. I use Cheez-Its because that is my number one. If I bring them in the house, it's because I've decided I'm going to eat one full box of Cheez-Its in one serving. That's just the way it goes.
Okay.
But planning ahead of time, hey, at some point things are going to go wrong. When I'm hangry, when I decide I need to stuff something in my face all of a sudden, what are the 3 things I want around that are going to fill that need? Don't pretend it's not going to happen.
Right.
Assume it's going to happen. And that actually, I found, I don't know if you do this with people, when I'm not tracking right now, but when I'm tracking my meals, I will often plan ahead. I'll fill in dinner for tonight. And I'll get there and be like, well, I gave myself a serious helping of mashed potatoes and some other things. And I got to eat them now. Now I don't have a choice. And it almost feels like a weird reward because I've built it. I built it so it fits in my day and it's already sitting there waiting for me.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I love tracking too. I think it's fun. You got to gamify it. You know what I mean? And also not look at it as a thing that we do to restrict ourselves. A lot of times it's a thing we do to make sure we're getting enough of what we need. You know what I mean? So it's, again, that just goes back to reframing and whatnot. But, and one thing that I always struggled with and that I know a lot of clients struggle with is weekends.
Yep.
They're like, oh, I'm no problem at all. Monday through Friday day. And then Friday night rolls around and I deserve to take a break. I worked so hard. There's that. Or then there's also, well, and for me personally, that's our movie night. So I can't watch a movie and not eat something, So that was something that I really had to, figure out as I was going through my own fitness journey, But if you're really trying to make changes in your life, every day has to have some structure to it. And that doesn't mean that the weekends have to look exactly the same as weekdays, but it can't be a free for all either.
Yeah. Well, it's 2/7 of your week. It's like 27% of the week, right? So if 27% of the week isn't going very well, it's going to be really hard to make the kind of progress most people want to make.
Exactly.
You said something really important a minute ago I want to double back to, and that's the frequency with which you run into people who actually aren't eating enough. It is, I do less super focused nutrition work these days, but when I did a lot of it, most of the time people would come to me expecting me to tell them to eat a lot less. And maybe here's how you do it, here's some guidelines, here's some things to track or numbers to hit or whatever. How often does a new client come to you and the answer is either keep doing what you're doing, or actually we need you to eat more?
A lot of times it's we need to eat more, a lot more than people would expect. But let's say that's 50% of people. The other 50% are we need to eat more volume and less calorically dense foods, meaning someone that's going out to eat, 3, 4 times a week, or, really not eating much during the day, but then, dinner is nachos and a burger and fries.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not eating much actually, but they're eating a lot of calories. So that's the kind of two separate situations I see most often.
How do you approach someone would hear what you just said? I eat out 3 times a week. I have a pretty sensible breakfast, pretty rock solid lunch. Yeah, I'll have a burger and fries for dinner. And they feel okay about themselves. They just want to lose a little bit of weight. It's not an emergency. Their health markers are pretty good. To what degree are we changing things and taking stuff away from them? Because we started this conversation talking about ideally trying to not take the things people enjoy away from them, but there's a balance to be struck in there.
Yeah. So I think it depends on, does that person actually need to lose weight? Are they healthy? Or is it just a matter of, I'd like to lose 5 or 10 pounds and kind of get to that next level? Because if it's, I'm perfectly healthy, I would just like to aesthetically, I want to, feel more confident on the beach. I'd like to lose, the last 5 to 8 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in that case, I'm going to talk to that person and try to figure out, I don't mean to be cliche, but is the juice worth the squeeze at that point? Because to lose that small amount of body fat when you're already healthy is extremely difficult. And the amount of sacrifice you're going to have to give might not really be worth it. But if someone does need to lose a little bit of weight to be healthier, then in that case, it might be a matter of, can we cut down just one of those outings? Or can we make better food choices when we're out? It's really a matter of what's going to matter more to you, because I would never just say to someone, well, don't go out to eat anymore this month and then you'll be fine. Because that's not real life,
I have years ago, I may have told this story on the podcast before, but years ago, I was in a big coaching certification program. Pretty high end, I think it took like 6 months to get through all of it, several group calls a week, pretty intense stuff. And the nutrition component of it, I was going through the nutrition component, and I remember someone presenting a client who worked overnight, and they worked night shift, and pretty active person, pretty strong. Nutrition's not bad, but he's having a hard time managing because he also has to do real world stuff like go grocery shopping, pay bills, deal with plumbers. All the real life stuff happens when he should be sleeping. And it's a real challenge, which I thought was interesting. I've done a lot of work with shift workers now at this point. And the nutrition, I think he called himself a nourishment coach. The nourishment coach said, yeah, your client needs to quit his job.
Wow.
And yeah, my face looked the same as yours did. And I immediately stopped listening to anything this Yahoo had to say because you're completely out of touch with the real world. Yeah, it would be cooler if this guy, maybe if this guy had a 9 to 5 shift where he could make the same money and it still worked in his life. That's not it. That story is a long way around of saying the answer probably isn't no more restaurants, no more friends, no more socialization, no more fun. We're only cooking in chicken and water now. We're going to move levers a little bit and make some subtle adjustments. And maybe we're doing a turkey burger with the side salad instead of the fries, but go out with your friends and have a great time and enjoy it versus become a monk. And we're back to kind of what trade-offs are you willing to make? What are your priorities actually for all of your life, not just how you look?
Yeah. Yeah, that's shocking to me. I mean,
it was crazy.
Yeah, there's a lot you can do within the confines of your responsibilities in life without having to quit your job or, make drastic changes. Or it's the same thing, or even like when you have a spouse and they're not on board with your lifestyle. You don't need to get a divorce over it. There's ways around it. So,
Yeah, and again we're back to like, well, what's important to you? To what degree are we willing to make a trade-off? To what degree does, like, how happy do you think a six-pack is going to make you versus spending time with your friends, spending time with your family, not bringing Tupperware to a restaurant like a weirdo?
yeah. I mean, but sometimes even within, maybe you are a shift worker and maybe you have kind of you have the option of switching a different shift, and you never really entertained it before because you were like, nope, that doesn't fit. I do this for a reason. My husband is a prime example of that. He is a correction officer and worked the overnights for, most of his career, over 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And he did that so that he could be home with the kids during the day. And he had a heart attack. And after that, we realized that his sleep was just too disrupted. He wasn't able to, do any cardio and kind of, work on his health and exercise and all of that sort of thing with the shift that he was working. And he had the option to go to days, but he never thought he could make it work. But the heart attack forced that on him. And it's been the best thing ever.
That's a very nasty wake-up call. I'm sorry you had to go through that, and you had to go through that. But having that thrust upon you where suddenly, what if you had to go on days? What if you had to make this work? It can be a real eye-opener. That's really hard.
Yeah, no, but he did great, and he's lost over 100 pounds.
Wow.
And yeah, and I mean, I'm not saying that you can't be healthy working overnight. Please, I'm not saying that at all. You can. It's harder, but a lot of things in life are harder, being in, menopause is harder. Having little kids at home is harder. All these things that will make a fitness journey harder. They can still be done. But if you have the choice, and you might have to make some sacrifices for that, but if it's better for you in the long run and it's an option, I would take it.
I have conversations like this with clients on a fairly regular basis where you wouldn't imagine with, fitness, nutrition stuff, but we're having the conversation of, no, your boss can't keep yanking you into 7 a.m. meetings. That's unacceptable boss behavior. How are we going to have we're going to walk through the conversation of how we're going to set this boundary, not because I know anything about working in a big law firm, which I don't, but I do know something about bosses and boundaries and what the long-term effect of this is going to be. And those are some of the most important conversations I've ever had, like helping people truly adjust their life and their lifestyle so everything fits in it the way that they want it to.
It's funny you brought that up. I never talked about this with another coach, so I kind of thought I was the only one. But the amount of conversations I've had about, kind of coaching people with a conversation that they need to have at work around boundaries, it's all the time.
Constant.
All the time.
Yep. All the time. And so much of it I found comes through that mindset reframing we were talking about, where, people will present their schedule as if it's something that's happening to them. And I can say, wait a minute, you have control over like 5 of these things. Mm-hmm. You decided to do this. Why? Well, I think I'm supposed to. How come? And just let them tease it out. Oh, well, I feel like if I don't do this enough times, then I won't be seen as a hard enough worker, and I won't get my promotion. Okay, cool. Is everyone else doing that kind of thing? The people who get promoted? They aren't. Interesting. So you might be the only person in the world who feels this way. I mean, I know they're not, but what would happen if we only operated like this 2 days a week, and the other 3 days you actually took a lunch where you didn't eat it at your desk with one hand on your computer? What would we lose? Tell me why it's a bad idea. Prove me wrong. And just like slow, and it doesn't all happen at once. Sometimes it's that. We're going to eat lunch not at our desk 2 or 3 times this week. That's the whole goal. And we're going to miss a couple of times going forward. But then it becomes normal. And then you can take the next step where you say, oh, actually, I'm just going to tell everyone I turn my work phone off at 6 p.m. and I put it in a drawer. And I pick it up the next morning. So I will answer your messages. I'll answer everything, but I won't be available until then. Super tough, but awesome hard boundary to help people set. That these kinds of conversations are just part of coaching.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it really is eye-opening for people too, you know? So many people just they give up all their control. They give up all of their autonomy, really. And sometimes they just need to permission to take it back.
And the so much of the system is built for them to give up their autonomy, right? Like that's part of the name of the game. And one of the things we can do as sort of health and fitness professionals is be on their team. And suddenly they have someone who is exclusively advocating for them. I don't want to make your boss happy unless that makes you happy too. I'm neutral on your boss feeling good, bad, or otherwise. I want you to be successful. So if we're only talking about what would make you successful, what would that look like? And now they have to, they're kind of working with a team member who cares about less than they do, right? I'm hyper focused on my one client, not on everything around them. What can we do to make your life really good? And they start approaching that often the way they treat everyone else. Like, oh, well, if I cared about myself as much as I care about my family and my job and my community and my relationships and all that stuff, these are the sort of things I would be doing. We should do that.
And when you do things like that, everything else falls into place so much easier because it's really all about managing stress, right?
It's a lot of it, yeah.
And sometimes people don't even realize how much stress they're under because they're so used to it. They've become desensitized to it almost. They're like, well, this is just life. Does it have to be though? Maybe there are some things we can do to decrease stress in certain areas of your life. And then things are just going to flow easier. Then you're not going to get stressed out and emotionally eat over here. And then maybe you're not going to, be trying to scramble and get extra things done and missing out on sleep over here. And then you're, like you said, you're tired the next day. And then you're more susceptible to choices that you wouldn't otherwise make.
It can be easy, I think, for people to take on the, I work so hard, I go so long, I never eat, I can handle massive amounts of stress, no matter what flies at me, I can handle it. That can become a point of pride and even part of someone's identity. And the especially in like a work professional setting, the unpleasant reality is you can say, well, if you died tomorrow, they'd replace you this week. So you like working hard, you like showing up. I don't want to take that away from you. It's an admirable quality. We can point some of that hard work a few other places. We need you to work as hard on your own recovery and making sure your relationships are rock solid and making sure that everything at home is totally cool and 85% of what you've been doing for work. And you're still going to be in the top 1%, right? And the kind of person I'm describing, I have one client in particular in mind right now who's probably going to listen to this, but we'll still be the hardest worker in the room, no matter where they go. But suddenly they're also putting a decent amount of effort into making sure that they don't fall to pieces and they don't have a heart attack because they've been putting things on themselves for so long and doing so much for everyone else that it became essentially unsustainable.
Yeah. And people don't even realize that this is what we do. They think they're going to get, so many people think they're coming to us for a workout program and a meal plan.
A meal plan and a spreadsheet of sit-ups and stuff. You're like, no. We're
That's not what we do.
We're going to talk about your marriage, bud. That's where we're starting because you just said something that really made my eyebrows go up.
Yeah.
Jenna Bernard, this has been brilliant. Tell people where they should go to learn more about you, find you, hire you, work with you, etc.
Well, I am most active on Instagram. You can find me at Jenna, JENNA _Bernard, BERNARD on Instagram. You can always send me a DM. I respond to everybody. You can ask me anything. It's not going to lead to a payment link. Just ask me a question. I'm so happy to talk to you and answer your questions. And I also have a podcast on YouTube called the Macros and Muscles Podcast. And you can find me in those two spots.
And we will put all of that in the show notes so people can just look down and press a button and connect with Jenna. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so much fun chatting with you.
We'll do it again.
All right.
Thank you so much for listening to the Feel Strong podcast. If you want to reach out about solving your fitness problems, find us on Instagram at feelstrongfit or apply to get started now on our website, feelstrong.me. Subscribing, rating, and sharing this podcast is an enormous help and has more impact than you know. Thank you for doing that if you're able. If you feel stuck, if you know where you want to go but you aren't sure how to get there, reach out. It's what we do.